Have you ever been handed over like a peace offering, wrapped in white silk, lips sealed shut, and no one cared to ask what you wanted? I have. And the road to that moment didn't begin in a chapel. It began in the back seat of a luxury car, in a white dress I didn't choose, staring at the frost on the Montana glass while my world collapsed in reverse. Outside, snow whispered across the pines like a secret too old to be spoken aloud. Inside, the silence was louder than death. No one told me where exactly I was going, but I knew. I was going to marry the man who had once called my father a ruin in a tailored suit. I was going to become Mrs. Lucian Kingsley. But I wasn't, crying. Not yet. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the numbness that follows when your voice is no longer your own. Or maybe, God help me, it was because part of me still burned from that night 2 years ago when I met him. I hadn't meant to provoke him. It was a charity art auction. He'd bid $100,000 on a fake Caravaggio. I was 21, naive but well-trained, and couldn't help myself. I said into the mic, too loud, too smug. Even the richest man in Montana can't buy authenticity. Especially, not with that taste. The crowd laughed. He didn't. He looked at me. Really looked. And for a split second I felt cold, like his gaze stripped off my skin, layer by layer, down to something I hadn't known was exposed. He didn't say a word. Just walked out. 3 weeks later, my family lost a gallery deal. 2 months after that, my father was drowning in lawsuits. And now, 2 years later, Lucian Kingsley didn't just own half the art market. He owned me. That car slowed. A driveway loomed ahead like a mouth carved into stone. At the top, Kingsley Hall. More fortress than home, more threat than promise. "We're here," the driver said. Not unkind, but not warm either. I stepped out. My heels sank into the slush. The wind cut through my veil like it was hunting skin. And then, there he was. Lucian Kingsley stood at the top of the stairs, backlit by the old mansion's light. Perfectly tailored black coat. Hands clasped. Eyes locked on mine like he was waiting to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. I walked up those stone steps one by one, heart beating so loud I could feel it in my fingertips. He didn't move. "Ella Monroe," he said, voice smooth as velvet over, steel, still so determined not to break. "You haven't earned the right to see me break," I shot back. There it was again. His smile that wasn't a smile. The curve of his mouth said control. His eyes said calculation. He offered no hand, no greeting, just turned and led me inside. Kingsley Hall was colder than the air outside. Walls the color of war. Ceilings too high to hear yourself think. The wedding, such as it was, would take place in the library. No guests, no vows, just a legal officiant and a signature. I thought he might say something ceremonial, but when the pen reached his hand, he looked at me, not my dress, not the veil, and said, "Do you remember the auction?" I blinked. "You humiliated me," he continued softly. "In front of the very people I was trying to crush. I stayed, silent. So I bought your silence. And then I bought your name. But what I didn't expect," he stepped closer, breath warm against the chilled air between us, "was how much I'd want to see you tremble." He wasn't touching me, but my skin reacted like he was. I hated that. Hated how his voice curled around my spine like smoke. Hated that I didn't hate him nearly enough. The official entered. Papers were signed. I became a Kingsley. He didn't kiss me, didn't say congratulations. Instead, as the room cleared, he leaned in, just enough for me to smell cedarwood and whiskey on his breath. "You thought I wanted revenge," he whispered. "But I want something worse. I want your obedience. And I want to see what happens, the moment you stop pretending you don't want to give it." I stood there, pulse throbbing. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from fury, from heat, from something I didn't have a name for yet. He walked away without looking back, and I just stood there in my wedding dress, realizing the war hadn't ended with this union. It had just begun. People say marriage is a promise. Mine felt more like a dare. He thinks he owns me. But the truth is, I signed that paper not to save my family. I signed it because I wanted to watch a man like Lucian Kingsley learn what it's like to lose control. What about you? Have you ever done something reckless, just to see if the world would flinch? I did. In white. With a man who looks at me like I'm both the storm and the firewood. And I think I just started a war I might not want to win. The bedroom was colder than the rest of the house. That felt intentional. It had high ceilings, bare walls, a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. One massive window overlooked a frozen lake, the surface white and silent like a corpse under glass. On the bed sat a folder. Thick, cream-colored, monogrammed. Of course, I didn't touch it. Not yet. I stepped out of my heels and walked barefoot, across the wooden floor, feeling the chill climb through the bones of my feet. This wasn't a room designed for comfort. It was designed for control. Behind me, the door clicked. I didn't have to turn to know it was him. I told them not to start the fire, Lucian said, voice even, casual, like he was commenting on the weather. I wanted to see how long you'd last. I turned. He stood in the doorway, hands in, his pockets, eyes dark as polished obsidian. The kind of gaze that made you feel like prey, even when he hadn't moved an inch. Is this a test? I asked, folding my arms. No, he said. It's a courtesy. I raised a brow. You'll be staying here, he said, nodding toward the room. Alone. Unless you change your mind. About what? About who you belong to. I walked over to the folder, opened it with one finger. A contract. Standard in tone, clinical in phrasing, but unmistakable in message. Separate rooms. No physical contact unless mutually initiated. Public appearances only upon request. No obligations. No expectations. No love. This is a legal leash, I said quietly. It's a shield, he corrected. You seem determined to prove you're not here to be used. This gives you space to prove it. I closed the folder. Why even marry me then? He smiled. Faint, dangerous. Because, and he said, you needed to be silenced, and I needed to know what it would feel like to own something that once wounded me. His honesty was more terrifying than any lie could have been. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the faint scar beneath his left cheekbone. Not from battle. Too thin. Too neat. A paper cut from his past, maybe. Or from someone who got closer than she should have. You could have had anyone, I said. I didn't want anyone, he replied. Just me? He looked down at me, and for 1 second, I didn't feel cold. I don't want you, Ella. I want what happens to me when you walk into a room. The silence, the tension, the reminder that I'm still ruled by something I can't name. I hated how much I understood that. He stepped back, gaze unreadable. Dinner is at 8. You can come down. Or not. He turned to leave. I should have let him go. Should have said nothing. But something in me cracked open. Something raw and reckless. You're afraid of me, I said. Lucian stopped. Then, slowly, he turned his head like a wolf scenting blood. Afraid, he repeated. Yes, I said. That's why you keep trying to contain me, control me, freeze me out. You're afraid that if you touched me, really touched me, you wouldn't know where to stop. The air between us thickened. He stepped forward again, slower this time, until we were only inches apart. My breath caught, stupidly, involuntarily. His eyes searched mine. Not for defiance, not for surrender, for something deeper. Something he didn't trust himself to name. Then, in a voice that barely qualified as human, he said, "You may be right." Then he turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. I stood alone in the cold. The fireplace still hadn't been lit. I didn't sign the contract that night. I left it on the bed and watched the snow fall past the window until my fingers went numb. I wasn't afraid of Lucien Kingsley, but I was starting to be afraid of what I might become in his house. That kind of hunger, that kind of control, that kind of quiet tension that curled around my ankles like silk and threatened to drag me under. He didn't scare me, but the fact that part of me wanted him to, that did. I used to think power was about money, status, leverage. But standing there in a room he built to make me feel small, I realized something else. He had the money, the control, the name. But I was the one he couldn't stop looking at. I was the one who made him speak softly. The one who made him hesitate, and maybe, just maybe, that meant he didn't own me at all. Maybe I'd been given the keys to a prison I could burn from the inside. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. I'd like to see how Lucien Kingsley handles heat. If you've ever been offered a deal that felt like a cage, tell me, did you take it to survive, or to study the locks from the inside? Because tonight, I didn't feel like a wife, or a pawn. I felt like a fuse. And I think I just started to burn. I didn't go to dinner. He didn't summon me. For the next 2 days, we circled each other like two predators locked in a mirrored room, silent, waiting to see who would flinch first. I filled the hours the only way I knew how, with work. Someone on staff had unpacked my equipment, gesso, scalpels, ultrafine brushes. I found a study off the library with soft, natural light and claimed it. No one objected. No one dared. There, among the dust and heavy silence, I uncovered a 19th century oil portrait stored behind cracked glass. A woman in deep green velvet, gaze turned away, mouth slightly parted, like she was about to confess something she couldn't say aloud. I knew that expression. I wore it every time I caught Lucien looking at me. The crack ran diagonally across her face, right through the lips. Of course it did. I worked in silence, fingertips gently pressing solvents into canvas, breathing steady, movements precise. There's something sacred about restoration. You don't erase what's broken. You illuminate it. And maybe that's why I didn't hear the door open behind me. But I felt him. Lucien's presence filled the room like a shift in gravity. I didn't turn. Didn't have to. He said nothing for a long time. Just watched. "Don't speak," I murmured, voice low. "You'll scare her." He stepped closer. I could feel the warmth of him, even without contact. "You know, most women would have set this place on fire by now," he said. I wiped the blade clean. "Most women weren't traded like livestock. You weren't traded," he said. "You were chosen." I turned then. Lucien was standing 3 feet away, sleeves rolled, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Less armor, more man. "Chosen," I echoed. "That's what this is?" "You humiliated me," he said, voice calm. But there was something old and molten underneath. "I was supposed to walk away from that auction untouchable. Instead, you looked at me like you saw the rot under the surface." "Maybe I did." He smiled, slow and cruel. "I should have destroyed you. But instead, you married me." He took a slow step forward. "Tell me why you're not afraid of me." "I am," I whispered. "Just not in the way you want." Lucien moved toward the easel. Looked at the painting without really seeing it. "You're restoring her," he said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because she's worth it." He turned his head then and looked at me. Really looked at me. "That's what terrifies me about you," he said. "You look at ruin and try to bring it back. The air crackled. And then, his hand moved. So slow I could have stopped it. So gentle it made my skin ache. Fingers grazing the edge of my wrist. Just a touch. But everything in me reacted as if I'd been thrown into fire. I didn't flinch, didn't move, just exhaled. A sound, low and trembling, escaped my lips before I could stop it. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Lucian froze. His eyes locked on mine, the way a man stares at a crack in the dam right before the flood. Then he stepped back, too fast, like he'd touched something holy by mistake. I shouldn't have done that, he said tightly. Why? I asked. My voice was steadier than I felt. Because I don't know what happens when I start. Maybe, I said. You're more afraid of what happens if you don't. His jaw flexed. For a man so used to power, control, dominance, he looked undone. The moment splintered. He turned on his heel and left, without another word. The door slammed behind him, and I was left standing in the quiet, with my heart thudding, my wrist still tingling, and the sense that something irreversible had just begun. I looked at the painting, at the woman with the parted lips. She wasn't turning away anymore. If anyone ever tells you touch isn't a weapon, they've never been touched like that. What scared me most wasn't that I'd moaned. It was that I'd wanted to. It was that I still did. Tell me something. Have you ever been touched so lightly it broke you? So softly it echoed louder than a scream? He barely laid a finger on me. But now I can't stop remembering how it felt. And I'm starting to think that first touch wasn't a beginning. It was a warning. I didn't see him again until the next night. Lucian didn't knock. He just appeared in the doorway of the library, as if the walls had summoned him. His suit was charcoal, his voice, smoke and stillness. You're not eating. I didn't look up from the book in my lap. Observation, not concern. You need food. You need boundaries. That earned me the ghost of a smirk. He stepped in, walking past rows of old books like he belonged to their era. A man sculpted for war, preserved in cashmere and secrets. I closed my book. If you're here to touch me again, you'll have to use more than your fingers this time. He paused mid-step. A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise? Lust? Shame? He masked it fast. No. I'm here to give you something else. He handed me an envelope. Heavy. Cream-colored. His signature in ink across the seal. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Newspaper clippings. Lawsuit documents. Scans of wire transfers. I flipped through them slowly, heart climbing with every page. What is this? I asked. Evidence, he said, of what your father did to mine. I stared at the final page. A letter. Dated 15 years ago. Signed by my father. Promising silence in exchange for controlling shares of a failing firm. The signature matched. The ink was real. My stomach dropped. Your father faked an investment. Scandal, Lucian said quietly. Used my parents as scapegoats. Let them drown to keep his company afloat. My throat was suddenly dry. You think this is why I'm here? To pay for his sins? You're here, he said, because it was the only deal your father was willing to make. One daughter to settle the war, one Monroe to bring peace. But I didn't accept that deal for peace, Ella. He stepped closer. Just once. I accepted it to end a legacy. The heat in my chest wasn't anger. It was shame. I hadn't known. Hadn't seen the blood under the family crest I carried so carelessly. I was a child, I said. I didn't know. I know. His voice was low, controlled, but something frayed beneath it. I should have destroyed your family completely, he added, but I wanted something different. I wanted you. I stood slowly, the envelope in my hand like a weight I didn't know how to drop. Why me? Because when you humiliated me at that auction, you didn't do it for attention. You did it because you believed what you said. I did. And that terrified me. Lucien turned toward the fire, and I saw, for the first time, the lines in his shoulders. Tension he carried like armor. I've built an empire on obedience, he said. People move when I enter a room. Men tremble. Women seduce. And then, you, this unpolished, furious girl in a gallery apron, looked at me like I wasn't worth a second glance. You wanted revenge. I wanted to forget that moment ever happened. He turned to face me again, and this time, I saw it. Not hate, not hunger, but something worse. Regret. I thought if I took you, he said, I'd regain control. Have you? Lucien didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the bar cart, poured whiskey into 2 glasses, and held one out. I hesitated, then took it. The rim was cold against my lips. He didn't sit, just stood, watching the fire. You know, my mother used to paint, he said. She believed color could cure sorrow. What happened to her? She died in that scandal, of shame, of silence. I watched him now, his profile lit in orange, the strong line of his jaw, the flicker of a muscle in his temple. She believed truth could save us, he continued. But truth didn't matter. Power did. And your father had it. He turned toward me. I swore I'd never let anyone take power from me again, until you walked into my life and made me want to give it away. My heart skipped. It wasn't a declaration. Not yet. But it was the first crack. You want me to pity you? I said, softer than before. No. I want you to understand what you married. He took a step forward. What happens between us from now on, Ella, is no longer about your father or mine. It's about what we do with the ruins we've been handed. Silence fell between us, heavy and aware. Then he reached out, not to touch, but to offer his glass in a toast. To truth, he said. I clinked mine against his, and drank. If pain was a language, Lucien Kingsley spoke it fluently. But somewhere in that broken dialect, I heard something else. Hope. You ever sit across from the person who ruined your life and realize they might be the only one who can help you rebuild it? That was tonight. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He gave me truth. And I don't know what's more dangerous. A man who lies to you, or one who finally doesn't. The why. Power went out just after midnight. I was in the gallery hallway, trying to sleepwalk my thoughts away, when the lights blinked once, twice, and then gave up. For a second, the house exhaled. Every humming wire, every bulb, every warm trace of life vanished, swallowed by Montana's brutal winter night. Then I heard it. His voice. You shouldn't be wandering. Lucien stepped from the shadows like the house had conjured him. He wasn't dressed for sleep. He never was. Just black slacks and a half-buttoned shirt that clung to him like a second skin. Power made flesh. There's a generator, he said, but it doesn't reach this wing. Of course it doesn't. He raised a brow. This wing, I said, the one you locked me into. I didn't lock you in, Ella. You stayed. Maybe I wanted to see what it felt like. To be trapped? No, to trap you. Silence stretched between us, thick as the dark. Outside, the wind howled against the windows like it was trying to claw its way in. A storm. A real one. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then he said it. Low, dangerous, closer than I expected. I dream about that night. My breath. Caught, the auction, he clarified. When you humiliated me, you deserved it. He nodded slowly. I know. Lightning flashed. A long silver rip across the hallway wall, then darkness again. I hated you, he said. I know. I still might. Do it then, I whispered. Hate me. He stepped closer. I didn't back away. I couldn't. His hand came up, slow, deliberate, fingertips brushing the side of my jaw like a match being struck. My skin lit up like it had been waiting for the flame. I don't know what this is, he said. I do, I said. It's a fight, and we both keep losing. Then I pulled him toward me and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It was war. Lips crashing, teeth scraping. Hands grabbing cloth like it might disappear if we didn't hold hard enough. I felt his body tense, then give in completely. The hallway disappeared. The house disappeared. Only heat. Mouth. Hands. A storm behind glass. He pressed me back against the wall with one arm braced beside my head, the other tangled in my hair. You drive me insane, he breathed against my mouth. Good, I whispered. Now you know how it feels. Another kiss, deeper, desperate, no strategy, no distance, just the violent, aching collision of two people who'd built walls too long. When he finally pulled back, we were both gasping. Lightning flashed again. His eyes searched, mine wild, disarmed, real. Do you want this? He asked, hoarse. Yes, I said. God, yes. But I wasn't talking about sex. I was talking about us. This impossible, burning thing we'd been pretending we could manage. He touched my cheek. Slower this time. Reverent. Like he'd only just realized I was real. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Quiet. Shaken. I've never kissed someone like that. Like what? Like I didn't care who lost. We stood in silence for a long beat. Our hearts beat between us like a third thing. Alive. Pulsing. Undeniable. I don't want to be a pawn anymore, I said. Then stop acting like one, he replied. He kissed me again. Quick. Certain. And left. No explanation. No command. Just gone. Leaving me there with lips tingling, breath gone, and the walls of the house no longer feeling like they were closing in. For the first time, I wanted to stay inside them. You ever start a war and realize halfway through that what you really want is to surrender? That was me. Tonight. And Lucian Kingsley? He's not a man who gives kisses freely, but he gave me that one. So what does that make me? A fool? A fuse? Or the only thing he can't conquer? You tell me, because tonight, I didn't walk away. I kissed the enemy, and I liked it. I didn't sleep. Not after that kiss. Not after the way his breath had caught when I said yes. Yes, I wanted this. Yes, I wanted him, and I wasn't going to let it slip back into silence. The storm still raged outside. Lightning lit up the edges of the house. Thunder rolled low through the floors. I walked barefoot down the hall like a woman walking into the sea, knowing it would drown her, but stepping anyway. Lucian's door wasn't locked. I didn't knock. He looked up from where he stood by the fireplace. No jacket. Shirt half open, sleeves rolled. Chest rising slowly like he'd been expecting me, but not trusting himself to hope. I didn't say a word. I walked toward him and dropped the silk robe I was wearing. Naked. Completely. He didn't move. Didn't blink. His throat moved as he swallowed. Hard. Ella, he said, almost like a warning. No more pretending, I said. No more control. Still, he didn't touch me. So I touched him. my hand at the center of his chest, warm, solid. His skin jumped beneath mine. "You said I made you want to lose control," I whispered. "Then lose it," he snapped. In one movement, his hands were on my hips, his mouth at my neck, and he lifted me off the ground like I weighed nothing. I gasped, legs wrapping around his waist instinctively as he walked me back, fast, until my spine met the cool paneled wall. He kissed me like he needed, to taste everything at once, mouth, jaw, collarbone, biting, breathing me in. I moaned, and it echoed off the wood like a curse. "Say it again," he growled. "Again? That you want this." "I want you," I said. "Now." He carried me to the bed, dropped me like a challenge, and pulled off his shirt in one violent motion. Then the belt. Then pants. No ceremony. No pretense. Just raw, built-up hunger coming undone. He crawled over me like he was claiming something that had haunted him too long, hands at my thighs, mouth at my ribs. My hips arched as he trailed his tongue lower, then came back up to kiss me, slow this time, deep, almost reverent, and then he entered me. One sharp thrust, full, deep. I cried out, not from pain, from the sheer reality of it. My first time, yes, but I didn't feel small. I felt consumed, complete. "Look at me," he said, voice thick. "I need to see your face." I did, and something passed between us, wordless, breathless, holy. He moved, hard, slow, then faster, driving into me like he couldn't get close enough, like he was trying to erase the space between us bone by bone. My nails raked his back. His mouth captured my moans. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't want to. When I came, I shattered around him, body tightening, breath gone, pulse exploding. He groaned my name like it broke him. Then he followed, thrusts jerking, arms shaking, face buried in my neck as he gave in completely. He collapsed beside me, breathing hard. We didn't speak, not for a long time. The storm outside finally quieted. But the one inside me had only just begun. You ever let someone touch you in the one place you swore you'd never open? Let them in so deep they stopped being someone else and started being part of you? That was tonight. I didn't give Lucian Kingsley my body. I gave him my power. And the wildest thing? He gave me his too. The morning after, I woke up in his bed. My body still hummed with memory, of skin, sweat, the way he had whispered my name like it hurt to let it go. Lucian Kingsley had come undone for me, and that's what made what came next unbearable. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even looking for anything. I just needed something to wear. The closet was cavernous, full of tailored suits and silence. On the far shelf, a leather portfolio sat half-zipped. Something about it called to me. Maybe the absence of dust, or the way it was slightly ajar, like it had been opened recently. I shouldn't have touched it, but I did. Inside were documents, contracts, memos, emails, all labeled. Project, Monroe Dissolution. My blood ran cold. I read fast, faster than I could process. Lucian had drawn up plans, months ago, not to marry me, not to settle a feud, to absorb, dismantle, and dissolve my family's legacy. Legally. Publicly. Irrevocably. Marriage had been a chess move, a Trojan horse. He'd married me to get closer to the vault, our contacts, our investors, our secrets. And I had let him in. Completely. Body, breath, trust. The final document was dated 4 days ago, after the wedding, after our first kiss, after he told me I was more than revenge. I dropped the file like it burned. My chest was tight. My hands were numb. The room spun. I didn't remember walking down the hall or opening the library door. Only that he was there, reading. Relaxed, unaware, until he saw my face. Ella. My voice was dry. You lied. He stood slowly. Let me explain. You said the war ended when we married, that we could build something new. It can. If you plan to ruin me, I yelled, voice cracking. Not my father, not my name, me. His jaw tensed. I started those plans before I knew you. You continued them after, I said. After you kissed me, after you touched me, after I gave myself to you. He stepped toward me. I stepped back. I'm not your casualty, I said. You're not, he said softly. You're the only thing I can't destroy. Don't romanticize this, Lucian. You don't get to spin this like some tragic Greek myth where the monster just couldn't help it. His eyes dropped, shame flickering through the cracks. I was wrong, he said. I didn't know I'd fall for you. Don't. I whispered. Don't say that. Why? Because I'll believe you. The silence between us was unbearable. Then, without a word, he did something I never imagined Lucian Kingsley could do. He dropped to his knees. Not slowly, not dramatically, just dropped, like he'd been hit by something too heavy to carry. His hands clenched into fists on the floor. His breath ragged. His eyes, not begging, not cold, just open. I've never asked anyone for anything, he said. Not love. Not forgiveness. Not mercy. I stood frozen, shaking. I don't know how to be good, he said. But I knew when I was inside you, when you looked at me like I was worth saving, I knew I wanted to try. Tears blurred my vision. I hated him for making me cry. Hated that a part of me still wanted to touch his face. You built an empire by taking, I said. And now you want to keep the one thing you were never supposed to own. He didn't answer, because he knew I was right. I turned, walked out. Every step heavier than the last. I didn't pack. Didn't leave a note. Didn't slam the door. I left quietly, the way you leave a grave. You ever lie to yourself so beautifully that when the truth finally hits, it doesn't just hurt. It kills? That was me. I thought I was the fuse, but I was the one who got burned. 1 year later, I came back, not to beg, not to test him, to see if what we'd survived had turned into something worth returning to. The New York air was thick with late spring, and the gallery smelled like old varnish, clean glass, and possibility. My name was on the wall this time. Not as someone's daughter. Not as someone's wife. As a woman who had built something on the ashes of what nearly broke her. The exhibition was small, but full. Titled, Restoration, 10 paintings. Each one saved, scraped, healed. People walked slowly, quietly. Some cried. I stood in the corner, watching, not hiding, just waiting. And then I felt it, that familiar pull. I turned, and he was there. Lucian Kingsley, standing in a dark coat that made him look more myth than man. No entourage, no walls, just him. He didn't move toward me right away, didn't try to dominate the space like he used to. He waited for me. So I walked. We met halfway, between two canvases, between the past and whatever this was now. Did you like the exhibit? I asked. I funded it, he said. I blinked. You what? Anonymously. You would have said no otherwise. You're right. I'm getting used to that, he said softly. I looked at him then, really looked. His face had changed, not in shape, in stillness. He no longer wore power like armor. He wore it like skin, familiar but no longer a weapon. Why? I asked. Why help me? Because I had everything once. Then I had you. And then I lost both. And that made me realize. He stepped closer. None of it meant anything without the one person who ever looked at me like I was still worth fixing. My throat tightened. I wasn't ready to forgive. You, I said. I know. But I did. He breathed in like that alone undid him. I've spent the last year unlearning how to win, he said, because I never want to win against you again. I just want to walk beside you. A beat passed. Do you think that's possible? He asked. Yes, I said. Then I reached for his hand. His fingers trembled when they closed around mine. We left together. Not as enemies. Not as strangers. As something new. Something built. Not broken. At home, he made us coffee like it was routine. I sat barefoot on his kitchen counter, wearing one of his shirts, and we talked. Really talked. For hours. He asked about the painting I'd kept. I asked about the therapy he never thought he'd try. We didn't say forever. We said, let's see. And it was enough. Because we'd seen the worst of each other. And still. Chose again. Do you know what victory really is? Not revenge, not power. It's standing in front of the one who ruined you. And saying, you don't get to define me. I do. And then watching them love you for that very strength. Lucian Kingsley didn't break me. He made the mistake of giving me fire. And I lit up the dark. If you've ever been betrayed, tell me. Would you ever go back? Would you dare love the person who hurt you most? Because I did. And I didn't just survive. I won. And this time, so did he. Sometimes I wonder how many women have been given away. Not with a ribbon. Not in a contract. But in the quiet choices we make. To stay silent when we want to scream. To please when we want to walk away. To forgive before they even ask. This story wasn't just about Lucian. Or my family. It was about me. Learning that being wanted is not the same as being chosen. And that loving someone doesn't mean letting them win. I didn't love him because he was strong. I loved him because he finally let himself be weak. Because he apologized without asking for applause. Because he changed without needing to be begged. I know not every man does that. I know some of you are still waiting for one who will. And if he never comes, let me say this plainly. You are still whole. You are still worthy. You are not what they did to you. We talk about power like it's a room you walk into. But sometimes, power is saying no and meaning it. Sometimes it's leaving. And sometimes it's daring to stay when it would be easier to run. If you've ever been betrayed but still believe in love, if you've ever shattered and still tried again, then maybe this story wasn't fiction to you at all. Maybe it was a mirror. So now I'll ask you the only question that matters. If someone truly sees you, not the perfect you, not the quiet you, but the furious, honest, burning version of you, and they choose you anyway, will you believe them? Will you let yourself be loved without shrinking? Because you deserve to be. You always have, and you always will. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's more waiting for you here. More stories that see you, that say what you felt but never said out loud. Because sometimes fiction is the only place we tell the truth. Stay. Listen. Let yourself feel. We're just getting started.